Start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 1. Hormones are natural chemicals produced in the thyroid, ovaries, and other glands. Carried in the bloodstream to target tissues, each hormone exerts effects specific to the hormone. As one illustration, estrogen produced in the ovaries is transported to responsive tissues where it stimulates and maintains changes that make an animal female. At natural levels, estrogens and other hormones exert actions vital to an animal's well-being. The estrogen hormone reacts with a specific receptor molecule in its target tissue, and the hormone receptor complex draws a response. Only a tiny dose of a hormone is needed to react with the receptor, although, up to a point, the response increases as the dose increases. So what will happen if an environmental hormone, pollutant, can mimic a hormone? Fortunately, a pollutant is a very weak hormone compared with the real one. Nonetheless, wildlife is often directly exposed to such pollutants and sometimes serious effects are seen. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 2. There may be groups in society who have been traumatized by their recent history, or feel culturally insecure, or are under particular threat. We may then need to give them rights not available to the majority in order to reassure them, promote social harmony, and foster a common sense of belonging. Born in the trauma of the partition of the country and the enormous intercommunal violence that accompanied it, the Constitution of India wisely decided to grant its minorities several additional rights. In Canada and the USA, Indigenous peoples enjoy negative and positive rights required to protect their ways of life that are not available to others. Some countries such as Australia, Canada, and India place a high value on cultural diversity and give extra resources and rights to their cultural minorities to help them flourish and contribute towards the creation of a rich and plural society. In these and other cases, minorities are clearly favored and in some respects even privileged, but that is justified if it is in the larger interest of society. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 3. One of the significant facts of human warfare in so-called primitive cultures is its highly ritualized character. Early 20th century anthropological studies of indigenous peoples contain a lot of descriptions and generally praiseworthy claims about the civility of their warfare. 2-0. Roy Rappaport's Pigs for the Ancestors is a study of the ritual and ceremonial life of Tsembaga people of the Western Highlands of Papua New Guinea. Roy Rappaport Pigs for the Ancestors, Papua New Guinea, Tsembaga. Traditionally, the Tsembaga are pig herders, and an important part of their ritual life is holding cyclical festivals in response to ecological dynamics associated with the pig population. When the pig population grows too large and threatens the yam crops, a festival is called to cull the herd. Tsembaga. The festival period is also a declared time for engaging in warfare, the principal aim of which is to deal with grievances and conflicts that have built up in the time between festivals, and to calm the spirits of ancestors. Rappaport distinguishes between minor and major episodes of war-making. Rappaport. Minor war among the Tsembaga, though potentially deadly, is so highly stylized the arrows used are not even fletched that casualties are rare. Tsembaga. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 4. The organic food market in the United States has been one of the fastest growing sectors in U.S. agriculture over the past decade. This has been recognized as a lucrative market where businesses, including large corporations, can do well financially while also doing good for the environment. The majority of organic products in the United States reach the mouths of consumers in much the same way as their non-organic counterparts, through highly centralized production, processing, and distribution facilities. In some instances, organic farms of today more resemble industrial agricultural operations than they do diversified farms, which attempt to balance economic and ethical considerations. Nevertheless, a shift to organic management regimes by definition means a prohibition on the use of chemicals that have historically been overused and misused in industrial agricultural production, resulting in pollution of land, water, and air. Further, chemical residues impact not only the physical environment but also the biological environment, including the resultant human health impacts. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 5-6. Self-disclosure by the professional can be advantageous in some contexts. For example, appropriate teacher disclosures have benefits in the classroom. When teachers use positive disclosures that are directly linked to the lesson material, these are well received by students and increase motivation, engagement, and learning. In terms of valence, it can be acceptable for instructors to reveal some negative experiences. For example, a sports teacher may detail an instance of having played badly and lost a game, or an art teacher may describe the production of a painting that did not turn out as well as expected. Teacher disclosures that are mildly negative can have a number of advantages. They underline the fact that no one is perfect or flawless, but that we learn from our mistakes. They show a human side to the teacher, and this, in turn, can facilitate student liking and engagement. And, if teachers only use positive disclosures, they may be perceived as narcissistic, and students may feel inferior. However, teachers should avoid using too many negative disclosures. They should also definitely refrain from revealing deeply negative details, such as having stolen, told lies, or cheated in examinations, as these have an adverse impact on students. Thus, some studies showed that, while instructors made self-disclosures about their personal histories, families, and everyday activities, they did not reveal information on personal matters, such as salary, or information that could damage their credibility or lead to negative evaluations. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 7. It is a common experience among keyboard players in particular that page turners do not turn early enough. I have, on several occasions, agreed in advance with a page turner that a head nod would signal the turn, only to find in performance that the nod was ignored. "I couldn't believe that you wanted me to turn so soon," is a typical post-mortem remark. This experience alone is enough to tell the experienced performer that he reads further ahead than does the average page turner. A similar thing occurs in choirs where a good and a less good reader are sharing the same copy. If the poor reader is controlling the copy, he will invariably turn later than is comfortable for the good reader. Nonetheless, when one asks musicians to estimate how far ahead they customarily read, they usually have only the vaguest of ideas. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 8. People's perceptions of their position in wealth and income distributions are often inaccurate. Those who have a little tend to overestimate their position, and people who have a lot tend to underestimate it. There is a general tendency to underreport wages in survey questionnaires, though. And this is further affected by how satisfied people are with their wages. Using a sample of workers from France, researchers compared how much employers said that the employees earned each month with how much the employees themselves said that they earned. Those who were less satisfied with their wages, the majority of people, tended to underreport the figure, but those who were more satisfied with their wages tended to overreport them. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 9. Humor may serve a leader's need to maintain face as well as to assist in saving a subordinate's face. By analyzing recorded workplace interactions at business meetings, Holmes and Mara found indicators for both. Holmes Mara. When two advisors compared their written evaluations, the more senior and experienced advisor commented on the written evaluation of his junior colleague by saying, "And apart from that, I've just got what you've got, but in a lot fewer words." This comment was followed by laughter from both sides. Here, the senior colleague conveyed a clear message that the report by his junior colleague was too wordy, but lessened its negative impact through the use of humor, which also serves the subordinate's face needs. Humor also serves a leader's need for a dignified profile when he or she makes an error. In another incident, a document which was produced by a leader contained an error, which elicited a humorous comment by the leader: "I find it really hard being perfect at everything. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 10. We are now living in an age where traditional religious values and commitments are being called into question. Many people today have rejected all traditional religious frameworks, characterizing themselves as secular or spiritual but not religious. This is not to say that they have figured out how to live entirely without value frameworks. If we take a step back, we will observe that even the most atheistic secular humanist is still committed to some very abstract, metaphysical framework, revolving around such values as a respect for human dignity and freedom, individualism and equal rights, and rationality as the preferred means for guiding public policy. Looked at this way, secular humanism functions very much like a traditional religion. It gives its followers a set of sacred values that allows them to make distinctions between right and wrong, good and bad, as well as the motivation to punish or avoid those who do not live up to those values. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS 8 Exercise 11-12. Musical innovation happens from the bottom up and the outside in, rather than vice versa. Those with power and authority usually oppose these musical innovations, but with time, whether through co-optation or transformation, the innovations become mainstream, and then the cycle begins again. The authority figures who impose their preferred meanings on our messy music have changed over the centuries. In the past, they might have been kings or prophets or esteemed philosophers. In the current day, they can often seem nameless and faceless, at least from the perspective of most music fans. For example, the marketing department for the local symphony, designers of school curricula, or judges at music competitions. But in every case, the tools they employ to prevent the sudden invasion of disruptive new ways of music making follow a predictable path, starting with exclusion, if not outright censorship, and when that fails, as it so often does, shifting to more deceptive methods of containment and repurposing. Upholders of the status quo really have no choice except to push back. The songs of outsiders and the underclass have always posed a threat, and thus must be purified or reinterpreted. The power of music, whether to put listeners into a trance or excite them to action, has always been feared, and thus must be regulated. And the narratives that chronicle and define our musical lives are inevitably written and rewritten in recognition of these vital rules. MTC. Good job.